excited to continue our mental health for this month of May. And as most of you know, we partnered with Helinski for Hope, huge in the college football space and what they're doing. We're so thrilled to bring them on in the college softball side. And Ellie, I can't think of many better people who are more qualified to talk about this topic with you. You work specifically with Florida State, one of the best teams right now in our game on their mental performance side. And I want to know what made you want to get into this space.
Yeah. First of all, thanks for having me. I think it's super cool what you guys are doing. Mental health is definitely something I'm super passionate about in life, obviously, and in sports. As we know, they go hand in hand. What made me want to do this? When I was in college, I came in as a freshman and I failed. I had a really great fall, made my way in the starting lineup, and then took me 20 games to kind of work my way out of the lineup because I didn't I've dealt with failure before, but not on that scale. And it was more so I'm like living my dream and I wanted it so bad that for my team, that I got in the way of like actually
Mhm.
being able to execute for my team. So I had to navigate that a little bit. And I worked with kind of my mentor and our mental performance coach at the time, Brian Kane. So that's kind of how I got into it. I feel like I've always had like a niche for like the mental side of the game in a sense of I've always been pretty tough. But then getting to college was just like a whole new, world to navigate, as well as a whole new version of failure to navigate. So I just bought into that for the rest of my career, and I ended up having a pretty decent career at Florida State. And it truly was because I took pride in the mental game. It was never my talent. Not that I didn't work hard, not that I, wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing. I was doing all the right things. I just wasn't responding well, but I also didn't know how. Because I think that's one of the missing links is a lot of people talk about mental performance, mental health, which is awesome starting the conversation, but the how piece is kind of that missing link of helping athletes, humans develop tools to help them through that stuff. So that's kind of how I started to fall in love with it. And then I got into college coaching. I coached at ECU for 2 years and I loved my time there, but I just realized that my love for the game, I love softball, I love coaching, but my love and passion was in the mental performance side of the game. So I literally quit my job and I figured out a way just to start my own mental performance business and working with Brian Kane. And then I got into that. I was doing pretty well for a year or so. And then Lonnie called me and I just couldn't turn down the opportunity.
Well, you mentioned you had a decent career, which I think that is being completely humble because we have to brag about you for a little bit. You won 4 ACC championships and you reached 4 super regionals and 2 trips to the Women's College World Series and then continued playing on professionally and nationally. Tell me what that switch was like for you being a player. Like you said, you were putting so much pressure on yourself, specifically your first season. What were some of the things that were fed to you that you feel like freed you up to play the game?
Yeah. Um, I think learning more about routines in game, learning how to breathe, when to breathe, and then just having things to go to when I needed something to go to when I was feeling frustrated or, I was getting in that sympathetic nervous system and my heart was racing and I felt like I couldn't catch my breath and the game started to speed up for me was like, what do I have to go to in this moment? So definitely a lot of like in-game routines and more self-awareness around myself. So recognizing when I'm starting to lose control and then having something to go to help bring me back. And then I just really focused on one pitch softball and it's really hard to do. Um, I I think those routines allowed me to dive into one pitch softball. And then I think my sophomore year, I was really starting to put that stuff to test and it was working. Still wasn't as consistent, still young, still needed experience. And then my junior year, I just felt so free and I was having so much fun because I was genuinely just playing one pitch softball and just pouring into the people to my right and to my left. And it kind of kept me out of my own way. And obviously, like I talk to this about my athletes all the time, like it's not about not getting frustrated. It's not about not feeling fear. It's not about not having the game speed up on you. It's about recognizing that it's happening and then having something to go to help bring you back to the present moment because you're going to be frustrated. You're going to feel fear. You're going to be in these really cool environments. So your adrenaline's going to pump because you're doing something really cool. So trying to avoid those things, which I think a lot of humans and athletes try to avoid them. It's not about avoiding it. It's about understanding, like, I feel like this in this moment, but it doesn't have to stay there because I have something that can help bring me back. So I think that's when things really started to change for me.
I love that. And you're giving permission for yourself and your athletes to really be able to feel everything they're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned the breathing side of it. And can you give us some examples of when specifically you chose to breathe when you're playing, or even maybe the routine that you're implementing within your team right now in Florida State?
Yeah. So I think step one is we talk about our signal lights. So this is the self-awareness piece, is like we break it down to your green lights, your yellow lights, and your red lights. Green lights is like, I'm in go mode. I'm confident. I'm feeling really great. I'm grounded. I'm playing one pitch softball. I feel really present. There's nothing really tugging at my ability to compete as the best version of myself. Yellow light is like something has happened that might start to take you out of it, starting to maybe second guess yourself in the box, like, ooh, should I or should I not? Things like that on the mound. Should I throw this pitch? Should I not? And then obviously your red lights has completely lost control, probably self-destructive self-talk, probably some bad body language going on. So number one, have to be aware of where you're at. And then the second part of that is that routine. So you'll see, if you watch Florida State softball, play softball, you'll see our hitters taking deep breaths on a focal point. You'll see our pitchers taking deep breaths, and it's not by chance, it's by intention. We work on it. So just simply every good pre-pitch routine, whether you're a pitcher, a hitter, a defender, is a deep breath on a focal point, in through the nose, out through the mouth, and then a kind of a final verbal trigger, or like some type of cue. We talk a lot about our, your hitting cue, your pitching cue. Where am I going with the ball on defense? So that's just like my green light go mode routine. And then we have our release routine, where we're feeling a yellow light or a red light. Our really seasoned athletes are going to have two different releases for a yellow light or a red light, because they're really in tune with themselves. So it might look a little bit different, but essentially it's recognizing where I'm at and then interrupting that with a physical release. So I'll just give you an example. Like Kaylee Harding will step out of the box. She'll undo and redo her batting glove. She'll take a deep breath and tell herself to tighten up. And then she goes right back into her pre-pitch routine. So all of our athletes, our pitchers, they all have that release routine that we work on in practice. Obviously, in the bullpens, you can't just hope that it shows up, between the white lines. So we definitely get after that stuff small at practice. So those are just a few examples of that.
And it's fascinating to me because now I think back to watching you guys play this season, and specifically the video you guys just posted where it had like 12 girls in a row taking a deep breath, whether they were in the box or on the field. And I want to know, because the toughest thing about mental health is really getting an athlete or any human being to open up about their feelings.
Yep.
How does that come for you? I'm sure it's natural for some, but for those who are struggling with kind of opening up to you, what's some piece of advice you give to them?
Yeah. You're human. A lot of people struggle with that. That's just human nature. I would say it takes a lot of courage to be vulnerable. So people don't really realize how much strength it really does take to speak up. And like you said, some athletes, some humans, it's really easy for them, and some it's not. They want to try to figure it out on their own, or they want to put on a front because they want to be the best for their team. Especially when you get in team sports, it's like, I don't want to let my teammates down, so I don't want to, wear this. But I love it when my athletes just get it out, because if we don't get it out, it ruminates inside of you. And then you start to have this negative lens, a negative bias on just normal things in life, just because of how you're internally feeling. So that's the projection, right? So I think that a really big part of my role as a coach is to build trust. No one really cares what you know until they know that you care. So building trust is really big for me in the beginning. As you build a little bit more trust, people start to feel comfortable to come to you. And then self-discovery is huge. I never push anything on my athletes. As coaches or someone in a leadership role, asking really good questions brings things to the surface. So you have to be really good at asking questions. If you can kind of see someone or you might think that someone is struggling instead of just like going right at them. Some people that might be okay, but sometimes just asking really intentional questions can bring things to the surface, but always want to get it out. Like I tell this is an athlete softball kind of comparison, but like when someone makes an error on the field, I want you to just pick up the ball, look at your pitcher and be like, hey, my bad, give me another one, I got you, because you just got it out of you, because we all know that you're embarrassed and you want to go hide in a hole. Like, we totally get that. So if I can look at my pitcher in the face and I can say, hey, give me another one, I'm here, I'm with you, now my pitcher knows I'm still in it with her, and I got that out of me, and I like already naturally feel better, because that's not just sitting in there ruminating and just feeling embarrassed about it.
So many programs I know kind of have their team meet with a specialist like you, maybe at the beginning of the season, middle, and then maybe once in the fall. But
Mhm.
you're there every single day. I'm
Mhm.
wondering, for coaches listening, parents listening, like, how often are you having these type of conversations
Mhm.
with your athletes about the mental side, let's say in a week?
Yeah. So, kind of how I work, kind of what my schedule looks like is in the fall, we'll have about one team session a week just on different topics. And then I will allow my girls, I'll send out a link, and my athletes can sign up to meet with me
Mhm.
whenever they want. Sometimes if we have like a theme for the week, everyone will come in, but again, it's freedom. I never want to force anyone to do anything. Like, I want athletes to want to come to me because, again, like you said, it's kind of the first step. So
Mhm.
some of my athletes are every week because they love it. It's routine, whether they feel good, whether they feel bad, it's just part of their routine. Some of my athletes is, maybe every other week, maybe once a month, or maybe if they're really just not feeling good, whether it just be overwhelmed with everything that's on their plate, maybe they're struggling on the mound, at the plate, whatever it may be. So I'm kind of just, I always want to be available to them. So I make myself as available as possible, but also knowing that they have a lot on their plate. Um, and everyone's mental performance journey is different. But again, I'm like in it with them. I'm at practice every day, and I'm kind of just hanging around, just, seeing how our athletes are preparing, just seeing how they respond to things in practice. And sometimes, I can see them struggling in practice, and it's just like pull them to the side and it's like, hey, talk me through what you're feeling right here. And it's a 5-minute conversation, and kind of just little hits like that can be super beneficial too.
And then we had a conversation early on in this season when I know there's maybe not as many results as your team wanted right away in the field. And you look at how much they've grown tremendously since
Mm-hmm.
then. But you were so confident and sure of them. And it felt like because you knew they were mentally in a good place.
Yeah. Yeah, I think too, like everyone again wants to tiptoe around failure. They don't want it. But like shared adversity in a team setting is how you get stronger. It's how you learn how to navigate tough conversations. It's how you learn how to, bring your teammates back with you and pull it out of them and help them pull it out of you. And again, we fail forward. We see failure as a learning opportunity to grow. If you don't fail, you're not going to grow. So sometimes, and I've been a part of this, sometimes you get teams and they win and win and win and win, and then they hit adversity in the postseason. They're like, don't know what to do because they haven't had to navigate it yet. So we're going through adversity. We're still going through adversity. But I'm like, I know that we're going to be tough in May because we're choosing to learn and have tough conversations as soon as we see them. And it's just every single week. It's just a learning, growing process. Got a young team that's contributing a ton. Every freshman has to go through some type of experience, and it's going to be really hard, especially with the schedule that we play. So again, I welcome failure. I welcome hard challenge. I welcome adversity because I know that the staff that we have and the athletes that we have, it might be painful at times, but we're going to grow and we're going to be better.
What were some of those conversations like internally? Maybe you saw a player to player you were having with the player where, when things were tough, but it allowed you guys to really come out on the other side, like you said, dominate ACC play. Now you guys are headed into supers.
Yep. Um, ooh, a lot of conversations, but I think it's like we get information and then we do this thing we call it tell the truth Tuesdays. So we have an off day on Monday, right? And then we come in on Tuesday and coach breaks down the film, and we give our athletes the opportunity to speak up. So meaning maybe they knew that weekend they were a little bit internal, they were feeling a little bit frustrated, and they knew they took themselves out of the present moment. So we give them the chance to be like, hey, this is what I did. And then we always finish, I'll be better. I'm grateful to be here.
I love
And we
that.
allow them to kind of, again, be vulnerable, knowing that we're humans playing softball. Okay. So we're all human, and we allow them to have those conversations and navigate those things. And then we just, we break down the video of if we're seeing body language, all of these things. It doesn't matter if you're a freshman or you're a senior, we're just going to hit these things right on. It's not bad. It's not us coming at you. It's just like, hey, we see you, what you did here. Like, how are we going to be better for this team? Because it's going to take every single one of us to get to where we need to go. And great. And luckily too, we have a really, really experienced senior class. We have a lot of seniors that have played in 2 national championship series. So they know what it takes. And they did a great job of helping the freshmen navigate some tough adversity early in the season, because they had been through it. They've been in the toughest games you could imagine. So just that leadership and that ability for them to kind of take the freshmen under their wing and just kind of ride with them through the highs and lows. And now we're in this spot where our freshmen can do the same thing with a senior now. Like if we see someone, with bad body language, our freshmen could be like, hey, get your chin up. Like, we're better than that. Be big. Like, just stuff like that. And not letting those things get swept under the rug early on in the season is kind of the biggest thing that we try to take care of.
What I respect about all of that so much is that you've created this environment where players feel like they can tell the truth and they're not going to be punished for putting themselves out there, which is kudos to you and the entire staff. And I've had the pleasure of being able to listen to you speak, follow you for years. And you had one quote you actually posted 2 years ago, but I still have it saved because I loved it so much and I wanted to bring it up today.
Okay.
You said, your internal voice influences you 10 times more than anyone else. Self-talk is a superpower. Talk to me more about that for any athlete listening. What does that really mean and how can they change that and make it their superpower?
Yeah. Yeah, that's something that we really hit on. So everyone talks about confidence and I love that, but it's like, okay, like how? What is confidence? How do you, because confidence is something that you do. It's not just something that you have or you don't. And like, to me, confidence is your body language. It's what you focus on, and it's your self-talk. So we have to dial in our self-talk because your body acts on your mind. So if you have a lens of negative frustration, woe is me, nothing's going my way, you're going to start to manifest that energy, and things aren't going to go your way because you're always looking at it in that way. So if we can start to talk to ourselves better, we're going to allow our mind to see the world with a better lens. And then you start to manifest your energy to things that actually help you get what you want versus take you away from it, or trying. A lot of athletes and humans try to avoid things, and they talk to themselves and what they're trying to avoid, not what they're trying to accomplish. And I think too, obviously positive self-talk is great, but you can also just be neutral. You can it's really hard to go from really negative to really positive. Like, can you just be neutral? Like, what are the facts? I think that human beings, our nature is we love to tell ourselves stories. We create these narratives in our head that really start to affect all of the things that we give and all of the things that we give off. So can we just create a better narrative in our head? And you can just do that by talking in facts. So just a small example would be, I can't hit because I went 0 for 3. So now I have this lens of like, oh, I just can't hit. And I've been hitting for 20 years of my life, and I'm playing in a Power 5 school in a top 25 program. That's not facts. That's actually a lie. Like, if you couldn't actually hit, you wouldn't be here. So like, why even tell yourself that story? Like, I'm really struggling because of X. Now, okay, let's figure out, how do we make X better? We make X better by, I got to get a pitch up in the zone, see it a little deeper, and stay through it. So there's the how-to piece. It's not I can't hit. It's just like, I got to get the ball deeper and I got to stay through it. Like, so if we could just talk to ourselves better, small like that, you actually give yourself a chance to get what you want. Obviously, we're never guaranteed, but can I just at least give myself a chance? Because obviously, the negative stories, the untrue stories that we tell ourselves, I guarantee you actually won't get what you want. If that's kind of how you're giving your mind the lens to look at it like that.
That's such a powerful message. And I almost kind of think back to your team last season and how much I'm sure they embodied it to make it to the championship series and the Women's College World Series. Can you bring me back to that moment? Did you see a lot of those conversations coming out where they weren't, like you said, trying to avoid anything? They were just
Mm-hmm.
going for what they wanted to accomplish.
Yeah, that was actually super fun season because it was my first year. And the year before that is when they lost to Mississippi State in regionals. And first meeting of the year, we watched the film. We watched the Mississippi State film. A lot of them hadn't even seen it yet. They didn't want to watch it. Coach pulled it up. I wasn't there, so this wasn't, this wasn't me. Coach pulled it up and just kind of watched some film. Some of the athletes kind of just saw how they were bad body language, a little bit on an island, and they just were shocked. They won all year long, right? And then adversity hit them in postseason, and they just didn't really know what to do. Didn't really know how to navigate it. Didn't really know how to talk to each other because of that. And we just brought it up. We talked through it, and then that was it. It was done. Like, that's done. That's the past. Now it's about how do we close the gap from where we are to where we want to be? Because where we are right now is we lost in regionals. Where do we want to be? We want to be back in a national championship series. So we got to get after how do we close this gap from where we are to where we want to be? So that's where you start. What were we missing in that moment? And then we have to build a plan and intentionally buy in for the whole season. And that was the kind of fire. And we just addressed some things that we could be better at. And just really dove in, to the mental side of the game as a team. They had already been doing it, right? But again, like you said, people kind of just brought people in every once in a while, and then we kind of just got after it every single day. We read the book, It Takes What It Takes, that year, and we broke it down every week and then tied it to mental performance. And that was kind of the foundation there. Even that season, we hit a little bit of adversity, but again, that's kind of when we started the Tell the Truth Tuesday, because I think the year before they realized that they weren't having tough conversations because they were winning, and the winning was masking some things that probably should have brought to the surface. But it's hard to do if you don't really sit down and have a plan to get after it. So that's when we started the Tell the Truth Tuesday, and it's just kind of carried on because I think that played a pretty big role in it. Even if we won and we were seeing some things that we didn't like in the games, we were having conversations about it, and we really just kind of opened up that freedom. And then we keep going through the season. We're working on a ton of things. And then we get to Sunday in our regional, we lose game 1 to South Carolina. And then that's where, I was like, oh, the next game we won that game. Kat Sandercock threw a perfect game. And it was just a completely different response. It was a completely different team that had a completely different response. And it was just because of all of the things we had been working on as a team all year long. Kat Sandercock, give me the ball. We're going to go win this game. Goes and throws a perfect game. And she's like the men's performance gold star. Honestly, she's super into men's performance, and she really, really gets after that stuff. So just all of the things we worked on allowed them to have a different lens. It allowed them to have, a different response to a loss, better body language, more tools to go to when they hit a little bit of adversity. They knew how to navigate it. They knew how to talk to each other. They knew what they needed to do to just win the pitch. So that was super cool for me because I was like, oh, wow, this stuff really does work. And then we rolled. And then, we ended up back in the national championship series, and it was super cool.
That is amazing. Like you said, so rewarding. And I want to know about where the team's mindset is going into this weekend. And kind of why I bring that up is because last weekend I was in Austin, Texas, talking to Coach White. And it was amazing to me when we talked about them playing Oklahoma in the years past to this year. And he said, we weren't physically better. We didn't scout better. We didn't do anything better besides the fact of the mental side that we finally believed. And I think that was so huge for me to hear. And I'm kind of curious to then hear where your team's mindset is going into this weekend.
Yeah, we're super excited. I mean, what an exciting time of year. It's going to be, I think we're kind of going to embrace the underdog role. Florida State softball
Absolutely.
hasn't had that in a while, and I
Yep.
think it's a good thing. We know Oklahoma really well. We have a big group of experienced athletes in our lineup that have played Oklahoma at the World Series and a national championship, where those fans are on you, and it's 20,000 versus, or it's 12,000 versus 500, right? Like, crazy environment. They've played in it. They've been successful in it, not gotten what we want yet. But we've been there. We've been against them. I'm super excited to go into their stadium. I think it's so cool, for softball, the growth of softball and all of that. So I think we're just excited. We don't have much pressure on us. We're going into their house. They're the number 2 seed. They're trying to four-peat. And we're just going to go in there and we're going to try to win pitches. We're going to play Florida State softball, and we're just going to go one pitch at a time, one day at a time. And that's it. That's all we can do.
Well, I know it's a matchup I'm thrilled to watch. And while I still have you, I do want to ask one last question, because we have a lot of younger athletes who watch, or even parents watching them.
Mm-hmm.
And I want, with everything that you have learned and seen really just great success within the sport, what advice would you give your younger self, so that any player who's really wants to get recruited, wants to be the best player they could be, what should they be hearing?
Yeah. Ooh, that's a big question. I love that question. I think that my younger self, and I talk about this a lot with my athletes. I think human beings, we know this in general, is figure out what you want, right? Figure out, what do I want? Get real with where you're at. Where do I want to be? Okay. So where am I now? Where do I want to be? How do I close the gap from where I am to where I want to be? And you have to be real. And then you have to have a plan. Like, what is your plan? Like, how are you going to get there? What do you need to do every single week? There's 168 hours in a week, right? Every single athlete has the same amount of time, but not a lot of athletes treat that time the same. So what are you going to do with your 168 to help you close the gap? And then you just have to compound really intentional great days. How do I have a good year? I have a good month. How do I have a good month? I have a good week. How do I have a good week? I have a good day. But I have to have a plan. Know your plan. Put your feet on the ground. Go execute your plan, and relentlessly give your energy to the things you can control, the things that will actually help you get what you want. Because most of the things we want, we cannot control. You cannot control getting a scholarship. You cannot control where you go to school, because you can't control who you're getting recruited by. You can't control the money that they're going to offer you. Sometimes, coaches just see you by chance. You just can't control those things. But what you can control is how you prepare, how you show up, your attitude, what you give your energy to, how you carry yourself, the teammate that you are, and choosing to execute your plan no matter how you feel. And I really think that that's how you get the things that you want, because most of the time we can't control those things. So how do I get what I want that I cannot control? I have to relentlessly give my energy and focus to the things I can control. And I can't tell you you're going to get exactly what you want, but I can tell you that you're going to end up where you need to be and where you're supposed to be. But if you don't, and you give your energy to social media, you compare yourself to other people, you're so worried about that she's got this scholarship, she's going on that visit, you're not going to be able to give your energy to the things that will actually help you get to where you're supposed to be.
That's real. And I love that you said it might not get you to exactly maybe where you have penciled in, but I think it's going to get you to a place that feels so fulfilled and proud of what you put.
100%. Absolutely.
Well, Ellie, thank you so much. I can tell you, I feel like I could have taken a million notes, and you made me want to run through a wall. So thank you for coming. Everyone, thank you so much for tuning into our second session of mental health awareness. We are going to continue with our third and final one later this week, but you can watch Ellie Cooper and the rest of Florida State compete this weekend in the Oklahoma Regional, Super Regional. Ellie, we're going to be tuning in, and thank you again for taking some time with us today.
Thank you so much. I love what you're doing. You're great at what you do too. So appreciate it.
I appreciate that as very, very much. But for everyone for tuning in, stay tuned. We're going to have one more episode coming your way, and let's all continue to grow the game, but also grow our mental side.